Greetings, friends, and welcome to yet another episode of the Grog Pod Roguelike podcast, where each episode we try to open and we try to run a game and we try to play it and we try to have a good time, big or small, and then we try to rank these games as best we can against all the other ones that we've done so far. I am your host of the Grog Pod Roguelike podcast. Home button, shift tab, escape, numpad 1, Scott Berger. And joining me in the evacuation shelter this week are my podcast co-hosts.
Colin, ye old medieval churl who've been time traveled to the future to fight the zombies.
And you go, we go, I go, me go. Andrew the Migo alien who has invaded. I'm the interloper who has invaded this dimension that is the Grog Pod.
Oh, and this is Will, and I'm definitely a brainless zombie, just plain and simple.
Well, this week we are talking about our average day in downtown Seattle simulator, Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead release. There's, I think, like almost every point in this intro segment that I have going here is going to have all sorts of weird tangents. This is so
Here for it.
This game was released originally on, let's say, GitHub, January 2nd, 2013, and recently on Steam, March 31st, 2023. As stated, you can find this on PC from the Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead website, where the quote-unquote main free version is. That'll, I think, redirect you to kind of all the different downloads they have, where I think there's maybe a different release of this game, like, twice a day or something. And then you can find it on Steam for the low cost of $20 to throw some money towards the main developer's way. Or if you were infected by some kind of zombie brain-eating disease, you could also find this on Android for the low cost of free, where you can find 3 different versions of this game. You can find I believe the standard branch, Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. There's a Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead that has, in parentheses, an X next to it, which I think is the experimental branch. I asked on the CDDA Discord what it was, and no one knew what it was. And then you have Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead by Michael Davies, I think is the author or publisher or something for that specific one. Again, no one actually knows what that thing is. I don't think that one's actually supported anymore. But yeah, we'll get there, but you can find a whole bunch of different versions of this game. This game was developed by Clear Raven, which is not one person, but many people. This game was published on Steam by a fellow that goes by the username of Corgent, who is Curtis Merrill from Jeffersonville, Indiana, and an accomplished Italian opera singer. If you find his YouTube videos, very talented. I can only sing his praises in terms of all the stuff that he does, but there's an interest. So I'll tangent here. There's a lot of devs for this game. We did a few developer interviews some time ago. I won't take up the whole show with this, but we'll put it in the show notes with 2 interviews that we did with some other previous developers of this ecosystem, if you will, and one interview that we did with Corgent himself to get some perspective on the latest Steam release and things like that. I think there was a little bit of controversy when that came out. We talk about it more, but I think if you go into the show notes, you find that link, you can find more info about his perspective on it. Cataclysm rolls in on our Steam dataset as the 1,073rd most popular roguelike out of something like 6,000, with roughly, let's say 199, somewhere around 200 total reviews. The Google Play Store version of this game is a 4.3 out of 5 with 50,000 plus downloads for comparison. I guess maybe not super surprising if it's free. But yeah, I guess our best comparison thus far has been Shattered Pixel Dungeon, which has about 120,000 plus downloads. So, Colin, what is the series of menu systems that's going to help us find the one-sentence description of what Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead is?
it's going to be numpad 222 G left parentheses and then ampersand, which is down, 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 G for get or grab, and then you disassemble the thing, and then you can craft it into a extra small left birch bark glove, so that it can fit your weird medieval hand. Because I sorry. So I played I randomly found one of the like things. I was like, I'm gonna play as the medieval churl who got time travel to the future, and I was playing as a person who was illiterate but had like a weird sword. But yeah, so this is a survival crafting roguelike with just an exhaustive series of menus and hotkeys to do things. And yeah, you can make it all. Every single thing.
I think I'm going to put a content or trigger warning for Cataclysm fans. If you've gotten this far into the podcast, for me at least, this is not going to be an objectively fun podcast for you to listen to. In the immortal words of Lena Headey, this will not be over quickly, and you will not enjoy this from my perspective. But yeah, I think like we often say on this show, all devs go to heaven. And in this case, this is going to be the most devs go to heaven episode possible, because as I kind of stated before, this is an open source game with many contributors and many developers throughout the years. We have, pulling from the GitHub stats, and I'll compare these with Shattered Pixel Dungeon, which is another open source game that we've talked about. Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead on GitHub has 106,000 total commits, or you can think of those as like software patches, compared to 7,000 with Shattered Pixel Dungeon. We have Cataclysm has 3.8 thousand total forks or versions of the game you can think of, compared to 859 with Shattered Pixel Dungeon. Cataclysm has 5,000 plus releases, compared to 45 for Shattered Pixel Dungeon. Cataclysm has 1,880 total contributors, compared to 2 for Shattered Pixel Dungeon. So yeah, I think this kind of underlines for me the game being how do I put this diplomatically?
Being rich with content and
oh yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in this game.
You were saying though, sorry, I rudely interrupted you.
Well, yeah, okay. So I think this game feels very designed by committee for me. Maybe not even designed by committee, but like designed by anarchy almost. I don't know that this game really has like focus or direction to it. And I feel like I'm jumping like way ahead into rankings already, but maybe we should start. Where's my Google? I gotta use my Google Docs to focus here. Focus.
The topic of how some of the pod enjoys or really appreciates when like a game is a solo dev effort, like that factors into the ranking for some of us, me included. And also the price of the game sometimes factors heavily into the game. So we're into the game's ranking. So this puts us in a bit of a conundrum. We've got 1,100 developers, but the game is also free / $20. So I don't know. It's like that is blowing my mind. I don't know where to put it.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, it should be like the greatest game ever or the worst game ever. I don't know.
Right. So part of the
1,100. Wow.
I think that
we know how many of those people are actively working on the like cultivation of this game. Any idea?
I would say somewhere in the range between like 30 and 50.
Okay.
That's
With like
lot.
a very kind of like long-tailed thing where there's maybe like 5 or 6 people who do it regularly.
Sure.
And then then you have like a very long tail of people who are like, you know what, this game needs left-handed guns. I'm gonna code in some left-handed guns that you can only use with your left hand into this game. Bam, I've contributed it. I'm done. Technically, like, listed as a developer on GitHub, but that's my contribution. Peace out. See ya.
Right. Sure. Gotcha.
Is there some individual or like small group of individuals that is actually approving the pull requests?
That I believe is
things
done by the, who did I say it was? Clear Raven consortium, which I believe is Kevin Garand and I think like one other guy. I had this in the Google Doc and then I stupidly deleted it later. But again, this is all kind of, we'll put it in the show notes. It's part of the interviews that we did. But yeah, there's like a few people who kind of approve the pull requests in GitHub. So I guess like there's some level of like editorial discretion going on there. Question mark.
You can reject. I mean, you can reject or request more effort or like, you know, say it doesn't pass tests. And
I think, and again, I might be kind of like overstepping my bounds here as an expert on the subject, but I believe that the repo owners are trying to deliberately create a very open dev environment. And if it's like, hey, you know, if you want to like fork this code and make something that's more to your style, by all means. But we're like, the Clear Raven consortium is going to not blanket approve everything, but have a very loose level of moderation, I think, for stuff that goes in. So I don't, you know, I don't think there's going to be like that much questionable content going in, but hey, you want a Porsche 911 turbo in the game? Bam, there you go. It's coded, approved, rubber stamp.
But that's not on the main fork though, right? Like that's how I imagine this. Like when you download the game and you play it on your computer, you're getting like the main version of it, which doesn't include all the crazy nonsense that's off on all these.
I think that is the main version.
Is that how that works? Okay, because I
so.
figured that like there's just like a whole bunch of, you know, if someone who wants that Porsche, they're just doing the forked version. But
so there's a kind of a schism going on with Cataclysm. There's a fork.
Schism in Cataclysm? Okay, sorry.
There's a cataclysm.
Yeah, there you go.
A cataclysm.
Well played.
Where I'll drop a line here for Cataclysm Bright Nights versus Dark Days. And Cataclysm Bright Nights, I believe, is a fork of CDDA that's supposed to be more streamlined, less simulationist insanity, more kind of focused. There's an actual end state to the game. Like you can trigger an end of the game in Bright Nights. There are things like no CBMs locked behind Exodii faction. No removed pneumatic or sci-fi weapons or items which existed in the game originally. No Exodii faction, period. No effects on conditions, JSON, or brand new vitamins-based mutation system. So those kinds of things, right? Where do we even begin with this? This is a game about zombie survival. Probably me personally, my least favorite genre possible. So when Will, Colin, and the gang are like, hey, there's a new open access, early access zombie open world survival game, I'm just like,
open world survival crafting zombie game. I mean,
classic. I mean, 7 Days to Die is one of the greatest games of all time.
And The Forest, which isn't
The Forest
quite
is a good game. Sons of the
quite
Forest is
zombies, but it's weird
yeah.
survival crafting.
These are good genres. Scott's wrong on this objectively.
I mean, it's okay to like a game, even if you are suffering from a brain amoeba. So I thought, like, you know, open world survival zombie crafting. This has got Will and Colin written all over it. Me, not so much. This is kind of stacking the deck a little. But in this game, our story begins where it's not just one apocalypse. It's all your favorite apocalypses rolled into one. You got plagues, you got zombies, you got interdimensional demon invasions, you got spore-like creatures, you name it. Your character has awoken in New England somewhere, procedurally generated town names, but somewhere in the USA, in the present day-ish 20xT6 timeframe, in an alternate reality where bionics, I guess, are common depending on the fork that you're playing. And your story begins about 5 days after the event called the Cataclysm, where you are involved in the changing of the mundane routine world of civilization, and you have to learn how to survive. And that's kind of it. You are kicked out the door into a series of Unix terminal menus with character creation and world gen setup and all that fun stuff. I know for a fact that Colin and Will, you guys have both played Dwarf Fortress to varying extents. Andrew, what's your experience with Dwarf Fortress?
Oh, I have always admired Dwarf Fortress, and I intended to play it at some point, but I have watched it from afar and, enjoyed reading green text stories and Reddit threads of tales of high adventure and dwarf forestry. Right? It's about forestry. Haha. But so I'm aware of it, but I've never actually played it. But yeah, definitely when I sat down to play Cataclysm, the first similar game that came to mind was Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, this reminds me of the pre-Steam version of Dwarf Fortress, which I tried and failed to play multiple times. And yeah, menus where you go into the menu and, oh, my cursor is on the left column. I would like to go to the right. Which arrow key should I click? Oh, of course it's left so that you go to the right. That seems like Scott and I were talking about that when he was streaming his little game for us, and it's like, oh, yeah, like just memorize all the hotkeys. That's how I feel like that's the way that you need to learn how to play this game. Watch YouTube videos that are out of date, memorize the hotkeys, figure out which things that they tell you are no longer current, and then run around and get eaten by a dragonfly.
Yeah, maybe this is a place to start, because you can't jump in and just start playing this game casually. So maybe this is a place to start. How many hours of tutorial videos did each of us watch? I watched approximately, I don't know, somewhere between 90 minutes and like 2 hours, I think, approximately.
I would say my ratio of playing to watching tutorial videos is 1-to-1. And I played like 5 hours.
Wow. Okay, so you're
I watched
a master.
I mean, maybe they weren't all tutorial videos. I watched some like role play videos because that's how I
shout out to Worm Girl.
Sure, yeah. Like there are a couple of them that I ended up watching. But like that's how I interacted with Dwarf Fortress for a very long time, was through like Krug Smash or the green text stories. So like I'm familiar with the concept of games that I don't actually like playing, but enjoy watching the creative content that comes out of them. And so after I bounced off this game the first time, I was like, okay, I want to like watch someone play this in a way that I enjoy, as a way to like prime the pump to make me want to play it, because I want to see how I could have fun, because it doesn't show you how you could have fun. You have to trust on blind faith that you might get enjoyment out of it eventually. It is not a learning curve. It is a learning wall.
Well put.
So that was, I guess, like I'm interested about how learning this game now compares to how you have learned to have fun with Dwarf Fortress in the past. Because Colin, you've put a good chunk of hours into the Steam Dwarf Fortress release.
I put a good chunk of hours into the pre-Steam version, and I mean, I didn't get anywhere.
Right, but did this, because this is like a brand new experience, did this feel easier or harder than your Dwarf Fortress experience from in the past?
Probably easier. Like it has like at least the things in it's still like you are a character doing things. So like okay, I don't know what the buttons are. I have to like scroll through, but eventually you find something. Oh, you click S to smash, you click W to wear, or W, uh,
Capital W,
capital
obviously.
W to wield, or whatever. It's like, okay, like there's not the like deep intellectual challenge of trying to figure out like what zones are and how to do militias in Dwarf Fortress, which are like, these are not naturally intuitive things. Like the management system of Dwarf Fortress is like, this is requires you to like understand like what's going on in the game, versus this game you can just like kind of run around and smash things, and you can just play it as that. You don't even really need to craft, so you just grab stuff, put it on, go run around and get killed by a zombie. So like the barrier to like your first death is slightly lower. But still difficult. Like you just it's a lot of time looking at that help menu, just being like, I don't know what button to push. I desperately wanted to be able to right click on things. To be like, tell me all of the things that I can do in this square. Because otherwise I'm just like randomly clicking buttons. Eventually one of them will like smash a window or something.
Yeah, no, that all sounds about right. I mean, that was my experience too. Like the first, I went in blind, and I'm just like, all right, here we go, new game. All right, I haven't actually ever enjoyed a rogue-like game as I describe, which is actually, it's to say, one turn, everything moves when you move. That's how I'm going to describe it. And I was like, I'm ready to really get into one. This looks like Dwarf Fortress, all right. Oh man, these menus, and just like you're saying, I knew right away that I just, like, after the first playthrough getting eaten by a zombie after kicking a dog or something like that, I just am not going to I'm not going to invest the time to like find out if this is fun by myself. I need to see, I watch someone else, see is there fun in it, and so I switch over to like watching some videos. And yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, I get the, beard scratching, like, oh, okay, like there's a bunch of zombies here and here, and you're on a roof, and you're like, can I get through them in order to get out of the city, is like where 90% of the time of like, oh, these people are doing. And then they get out, and then suddenly, oh no, a Yumi appears on screen. This is giant cat. It's like much faster than you. And it's just like, oh, I lost right there because he entered my screen and he saw me, and I have absolutely no way of escaping him, and I have no way of fighting it. That's just the end of the game. And so it's like, it's a hard punishing game where it's just like, all right, you just keep doing that over again and over again, but like the time it takes to do that is intense, because you start the game and you have to rummage through the house, and when you're like wherever you're starting, and you're just like going through the menu slowly, getting some like antimicrobials and all these little tiny things, and then you finally try and get out, and then you have like a 95% chance of dying before anything interesting happens. And that and maybe it's not quite that bad when you get to the expert level, where you're like, oh yeah, I can just fucking parkour off this door and just backflip up here, and then I can safely step down here and like punch the zombie in the face, easy. I never got to that level. And I think the reason I'm not going to give a super low rating here, which I already know like what you're thinking, is because if I did master all of these things, I can see the fun in the premise of this game. I can see how the intense depth of it could be really entertaining if you were just a master of the menus, and you got everything immediately, and all the time that you were spending was making crucial gameplay decisions that seem interesting, as opposed to trying to find the thing that describes what a thing is. So that's kind of how I feel about this.
I spent a lot of time like the core simulation behind it seems like I could have fun doing that. I think, Will, you're in the same boat as me.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
Like this, like we're both very into simulation-y type games, and this is a deep, deep simulation. It is. I mean, you got like the arch of your foot, the toes of your feet, like every little part of your foot is modeled, your hand, your lips. Like you can go in exquisite depth here, but then also you have to go into exquisite depth. And so like I'm like, oh, I'm this medieval churl. I want to like get rid of my my loincloth rag thing and wear like cargo pants. And like the I had found myself in a house. I'd killed the zombies in the house, and I had all of the stuff that should have been necessary to like make clothes. And the effort that it took to figure out how to tear down the curtains and make it into long strings, and then make those long strings into short strings, and make those short strings into threads, and then get the leather things so that you could make the cargo pants, and then get the sticks so that you got to drag the stick because you can't carry the stick because you don't have enough pockets, and like just like, and trying to figure out what you're close to being able to build or what you should be trying to do. But like, I would just open up my crafting menu every once in a while and be like, oh cool, there's new things I can build, I guess. Like I want to do this. Like, how do I make thread? Like I had to go ask Chat GPT how to make thread in CDDA because the internet wasn't good enough. I'm like, I need to make, I mean, actually thread's not that hard, but like, it's just like, I don't want to have to look up on like leave the game to look up every single crafting item to figure out how to like, what is an awl? How do I make what's a staff and distal so I can make yarn?
Mm-hmm. They need the ChatGPT plugin for the game, and then you're just in the game and you could just query it right there. Perfect.
That's actually not the worst idea that I've heard for this game.
I mean, it's open source. Why not? Like,
yeah, just like literally have it there. Be like, I would like to make cargo pants. What do I need?
Oh, and now that with the new iteration that it can understand images, I wonder if you're able to say, "Hey, based on this screenshot right here, what do you think I should do?" And like get some like, I don't know, is it at that
honestly,
level?
like,
that'd be cool.
ChatGPT is like, or Cataclysm is it's not a simple game, but it's got input that you could put into an AI more easily than many other games. It's text based. It's sprite and pixel and tile based. You could absolutely have that fed into the AI, and it would just like directly understand what you're looking at.
I think so. There's a lot of menus and a lot of depth, and you're learning all these controls. And I have kind of maybe a potentially rude question. I will admit that this isn't really my sort of survival game. I'm more of a like don't starve type survival game player. So maybe I'm not the target audience. And I commend every one of the 1,100 Cataclysm survivors that have contributed to this game. But hey, there's over 1,000 releases on GitHub, and not a one of them is fun, as far as I can tell. You're learning all of these, you're memorizing all of these controls, and there's all this incredible depth. And I don't know, I kept asking myself, and I will ask all of you, like, to what end? Because
master the elements to survive.
Boring.
Become to fortify against the what's bad, and to build up your stockpile so you can weather the storm and the big things that are coming for you.
Go out and
capture the enemy and make it your slave.
Sounds very exciting. I don't know if the game conveys any of that sense of accomplishment.
You got to go and so okay. I'll give you the actual like the one moment that I had that I felt like I had true fun, which was in the first churl that I played that died. I was like sleeping in some like patch of woods, drinking out of a puddle, and something snuck up on me. It was a dog, and then I followed the dog back to the farmhouse where there were. I was ambushed by zombie cows, and I had a desperate flight into the house trying to like kill a cow with my dagger sword thing, like get it stuck in the window and like stabbing it as it's trying to get through, and then trying to like retreat further into the house to like let my bleed my wounds and like wait and hope that I can like hide. And that another cow came in, and I'm like desperately backed into a corner trying to stab this cow, and I killed it. But then I heard the third cow, and I'm like, I gotta run. I'm like, maybe I can make a break for it. And so I smashed through the window and tried to run. I was like, I jumped over the fence. I was like, yes, I've escaped. And then it just smashed through the fence and came and just kicked me down and hoofed me to death. And I was like, that felt like a real zombie thriller moment.
Yeah, now see, I got excited for a moment because I thought you were saying is that your weapon got stuck in the window. but no, it was like you were trying to get the enemy stuck in the window. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
I see.
Well, not stuck,
Interesting.
but if like
Right, you were trying
hit
to where their
ruins-
numbers will count for nothing, where the cow's numbers will count for nothing.
I remember
Yeah.
that scene in 300.
Yeah, I feel like all of the activities available in this game and all the quote exciting stories of people playing this game, it feels like activities and experiences that I've had more successfully in other games and that are available. So maybe I'm just not the target audience.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that the developers, I was listening to a ye old episode of another roguelike podcast that I'll be one of those people to shill for other programs. Roguelike Radio did an episode with the developers years and years ago, and they were talking specifically about like, hey, like we can kind of go one of two ways with development for this. We can either do like really deep simulationist type stuff, a la Dwarf Fortress, or we could do a more kind of like streamlined, like focused on like a specific story sort of thing. And I believe that they opted specifically for the simulationist aspect in order to like allow, like there was, I think at the time, the biggest debate in the Cataclysm world was like, what do you call the containers that you put milk in between like either like
jug.
Yeah, like, is it a jug or is it the other kind of name for a jug? I'm just like, oh my god, this is just it's just a bunch of like programmers with no supervision let loose on the internet and like throwing as much stuff into a game as they possibly can, which is fine. I feel like there's interesting stuff here that's overlooked as a result though. Like as I was typing out these notes, I'm like, wait a minute, there's a lot of like parallels between ideas here with like Half-Life, post-apocalypse, zombie, or like different types of like alien monster invasions, trying to survive in the open world. And I kept thinking like, man, there would be like a really good idea for like a Half-Life style rogue style survival game here, where it's after the Black Mesa incident, the monsters are like zapping in everywhere, and you have to survive and find Breen's compound to survive in. Cataclysm has a bunch of different factions. It has maybe like seven different human factions, one of which is the Tacoma commune, just down the I-5 from here.
Wow.
We have the XE037, the Blob. I think this is supposed to be the main antagonist to all factions. This is the thing that's the Cataclysm. This is the thing that's invading the Earth.
The thing that's animating all the zombies.
Even. Yeah. You have fungal intelligence. You have plant monsters. You have super monsters of some other ilk. Things that like are, I guess, reminiscent of the Combine from Half-Life ? You have post-human cyborg travelers from other Cataclysm-affected dimensions. You have autonomous locust-like robots with incomprehensible inner workings. And you have a human-created military artificial intelligence network named Balthazar that I think you can load a nuke into and nuke your created game instance. All interesting stuff that you would never know existed if you didn't get pummeled by a child-sized dragonfly 5 minutes into trying to get to the evac or the refugee shelter, as we experienced in our stream last night. There's magic in this game too. Like there's actual magic systems. There's all sorts of crazy nonsense. But like I feel like none of which really like is focused on because there's just so much other stuff happening. One of which is car driving. I think that's like one of the
it seems like one of the biggest draws, like the most popular activity is building your strange grid, like Race for the Galaxy style car and then driving it around. And the way that like when you're driving at an angle and it like segments all the pieces out into this like super pixelated thing is very endearing and entertaining. Yeah, that's right. Like it seems like every time I watch, a lot of the videos and things that I've seen have been about the Mad Max isms about it. And I do want to mention, because I've been pretty negative so far, the actual like flavor and story of the type of Cataclysm and the type of invaders, alien invaders, is probably one of the better parts of the game. I think it's like it's pretty interesting and engaging. And I was reading through some of the wiki and everything. It's not just a generic zombie invasion. Like, there's a little more going on. In my experience of the game, that interesting stuff was not really portrayed very interestingly in the mechanics or in the gameplay, unfortunately. But maybe I just didn't get far enough. Real briefly, I had an experience with a vehicle in that I managed to find a car near the evacuation shelter, and I popped in it, and I did not quite fully understand the controls. Basically, I drove it through the wall of the evacuation center and made it pretty much no longer a very good place to hold up. So I felt a little bit bad about that. A bit bad to leave the NPC high and dry like that. But and then I drove away. I drove into another building, and then I finally figured out how to get out of the car and figured let's just, I'll leave it at that.
That's about enough driving for me.
That's right.
I didn't even get to a car, so congratulations on getting that far.
Thank you.
I got into a car, and then I looked around at the car, and I tried to figure out how to make it work. And my guy I use, this was not my churl. My churl is philosophically opposed to cars, which gave me 8 extra points to spend, or something like that, like a lot.
And that brings us to what I think is another pro of this game, is the different character traits and features and the level of detail. This is a level of detail where I'm like, oh, okay, this is neat. This does work for me, as opposed to what I was talking about earlier, which is, when you fire up a game, like, the character creator is very in-depth and pretty interesting. And like, if you randomly roll a character, that was kind of a highlight of each playthrough. It's like starting it off and then like opening up the character screen, which can be accessed conveniently with Shift 2, and looking at my pros and my cons and everything. Like, after a bunch of tutorial watching, I felt like, all right. At one point I felt like, okay, I think I'm ready to embark on a semi-serious run here. And I know what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is, in the evacuation center, I'm going to talk to the NPC. I'm going to see if they have any activities, any tasks for me to do. And so I fired it up, random character, walked over to the NPC, and then I was greeted in the dialogue options with, sorry, you are actually deaf. So you're not going to be able to converse with this NPC. I was like, okay, interesting. But what I lacked in the ability to hear, I made up for in firepower. I started off with a nice little arsenal, so that was convenient. But I think it's pretty cool that there's like so many different options and so much granularity to the character creation.
Would this game be better as a tabletop RPG?
No, absolutely not.
Haha. I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to encourage all the Cata heads out there, the Cataclysm players, that I think they would really like some tabletop RPG playing. I think you could get perhaps a more fulfilling and interesting experience out of a TTRPG with a good GM, possibly.
Okay.
There are also car combat games that exist. That's also an option. That's just the sense I get, but I don't know. There's not as many menus. I think I
misunderstood your question, Scott. But yes, I see now where, after Andrew, I think human brain makes simulation, not computer game makes simulation.
Right. If you had a character sheet that was like as large and as in depth, like a direct 1-to-1 conversion to a tabletop game, no, probably not. But like this sort of setting and concept in a TTRPG environment, I think would be good, in my opinion. What do you think, Scott, of your own question?
I mean, like, my note in the Google Doc here is that, like, when traditional rogue style games like this, and we'll see how Caves of Cud shapes out over the next few months, but when games like this get overly complicated to a point, they kind of like Ouroboros back onto themselves of becoming like a pen and paper RPG from which they originally like sprung forth from the head of the OG Rogue to try to solve. Right. So I think the development history is like back in the 1980s, they developed Rogue as like a way of like, well, I don't have any friends, but I like playing D&D, so we'll make this thing that kind of splits the difference a little bit with the tech they had at the time. And now it's just gotten like kind of like full circle moment back to like there's so much stuff in here. Just print it out on paper and you might have a better time. I feel like. So what was it? Like a few days ago, I had a very generous tutor from the Roguelikes Discord, the Sneck, who walked me through like all the different stuff. Like, hey, you should pick a cybernetic gangster because they have like a Mega Man style like arm blaster on them. Great, perfect idea. You should start with this scenario here. It's the easiest. Got it. You should go navigate through these menus. Okay, perfect. He like this was a very like gentle GMifying of this game system where I was like, I have experience with Dwarf Fortress. Like I'm not no newbie to like
you ain't no slouch.
We're all smart.
Come on, you're not scared of a little. You're not afraid of a little ASCII UI, like.
But like and I will say like the menu systems here are many and they are verbose. I will say that they are probably better than the OG Dwarf Fortress.
Yes.
But that's not saying much. And like there's just this is like a game you need a wiki up on one monitor, you need the main game on another monitor, and then you need a coach in the room to tell you what to do in order to find where the fun is.
This is all just an UI issue though, right? What you're describing is not well, in my opinion. I mean, I agree with it. Pretty much everyone here saying it's not fun game as it is, right? But like the concept of it and the idea of the deep simulation, I don't think is one that you can disparage so easily, because what you're describing is just like, oh, I don't get it because the UI is so clunky and I want to know how to do something, but I have no easy way of doing that. Mm-hmm. Again, like if we go back to the Cogmind discussion, like the big outcome for me out of that was like, just make this look like Into the Breach and give me like better like UI, and suddenly this game goes from total dog shit, but to like something that I really love. In a similar fashion to this game, it's like if you just had a UI and maybe it's not a like a top down sort of like I know that's how this is like designed right now, but like I know Colin, you and I have talked about like these really deep simulation. Like what's the fantasy game we have? It's a deep simulation where it's like a 3D thing where everything's procedurally generated and it's
Kenshi 2.
A version of Kenshi. I mean, like that does have like there is a very specific like an important management of the landscape. Everything's custom made, and I think they do that very well. It's not actually Kenshi's actually very much not in the realm of procedurally generated, but
it's more emergent than procedural. But
right, the emergent battles and that stuff that's all very great. But so I think it's possible. The procedural is possible, but only if it's done right. And I just don't think we've seen it done right.
I think
this is a good point, Will. If if this game just had mouse controls and you could right click and have all those options, as you were saying, Colin, like until you learn the hotkeys.
The difference between the Kitfox Steam Dwarf Fortress version and the OG Dwarf Fortress is substantial. Like I did not end up playing I didn't end up being like, oh, the new Dwarf Fortress is my favorite game, but I did play it. I put a bunch of hours into it, and being able to like right click on things and having like a good menu system made a world of difference in terms of being able to figure out what was going on. Yeah. Like I was like, oh, which button do you push? It's just like, it gets tiring to have to look it up again. And I like,
because you're learning almost a programming language for the game instead of learning like, I know how to play video games. Like, just let me play the damn video game, right? I don't need to learn C++ in order to have fun here.
Maybe that's why there's so many contributors, because they're like, oh yeah, coding is more fun than playing this game that we're working on.
So I guess for a roguelike podcast, we have not played very many true old school roguelike games. So I am curious how much of this is us being like, when I tried to teach my mom how to play Portal, and she's like, I don't know how to walk.
I don't think this is a roguelike game.
No, but like the G for get, or like all of the different hotkey shortcuts, like how much of those are in the old school roguelike games? I don't really know. We have not played that many of them.
Ironically, I think those older games are probably way simpler because
they are simpler, but I wonder if this is just an expansion of that, where it's like half of the, like, oh, you click at to see your character. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense to us, but it's like at is the symbol for your character in roguelike games. So like it's like it's the equivalent of saying like click I for inventory. It's like, yeah, can you click at for yourself because that's you. So I wonder how much of it is us not understanding the like old school design language of roguelike games.
Well, like, I think like there's UI, there's UX, and accessibility, right?
Yeah.
And coming to Cogmind's defense here, like Cogmind's like artistic style is very traditional roguelike-y, tile-based graphics. I mean, credit to Cataclysm here. You can zoom in and out of the game. Can't do that in Cogmind. Kind of a plus in
great
Cataclysm's
quality of life thing that should be in all of these tile-based games.
Yeah, exactly.
Zooming. Good job.
But yeah, like Cogmind, you can play almost entirely just with the mouse. New Dwarf Fortress, you can do that. Kitfox has been, like they did like that huge polishing pass on Dwarf, like just the fact that you can play Dwarf Fortress on the Steam Deck now is like landing on the moon level of human accomplishment, I think. So, and Kitfox now is turning their focus onto Caves of Cud for a similar kind of polishing pass, which, like, standing ovation. Like, I mean, Cud probably playable before it, but for me, I think definitely deserves that kind of accessibility overhaul on it. I could see if Kitfox took an overhaul pass on Cataclysm, forked it to like the Kitfox version, where, hey, we're gonna put in an end goal. We're gonna put in like some more less aggressively anti-user pattern menu navigation. We're gonna make it so
a scenario that's a tutorial.
Well, yeah, I mean, like there is the quote unquote tutorial in here, but I almost left the tutorial more confused than when I started, which I did not demo for our stream because I don't know if it would have been that helpful, to be honest.
I mean, just go watch YouTube videos instead.
Yeah, but like there's interesting stuff, I think, in this game that's really locked behind its aggressive and like borderline proud obtuseness, where like you watch like the content creators on YouTube and they're having a good time. They're generating all these interesting and cool stories out of it. You're like, great, I would like to engage and like make those also cool stories without getting beaten to death by an emu 10 turns in. But it's just every time I fired up the game, it was just, I felt the energy draining out of my brain of just like, I'm programming all day long. The last thing I want to do is jump into more obtuse menus. And again, God help, thank you, the Sneck from the Discord, who unsurprisingly is an assembly programmer. So you can definitely see that this game would be catnip for that person. But yeah, like there's interesting stuff here that you just need like a flood of UX and accessibility programmers to jump into that GitHub and start throwing those pull requests in there.
Is it just 100% software engineers that play this game?
It has to
That's
be.
why it is what it is.
I can't imagine any people with like an art degree would jump into this game. Well,
I mean, there are tile makers, so there are
and again, this game comes
accomplished artists.
This game comes prepackaged with tiles, which again, standing ovation, a sort of rarity to see for traditional like big pillared rogue style games.
I mean, if you like the Maxis The Sims, you should like this, right? It's the same sort of game. I think that's that's not at all. There's no overlap there.
I think if you were a programmer at the studio that makes The Sims and you're like, oh boy, I love programming simulations, then you're probably firing this on your laptop on the bus ride home.
So I think Sims is actually not The Sims, Sim City is an interesting comparison to a game like this, because they are both very much simulation games, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes in SimCity, but you don't really have a way of affecting them, so you don't have to deal with it as much. I feel like this game has an overwhelming amount of systems that you must engage with immediately. I made wooden clogs for my feet so I could get rid of my rags, and it's like, now your feet are chafing. It's like, now you must make socks so that your feet don't, your arch of your foot is chafing. I'm like, like, I like that it is simulating all of you, but like even like something like Dwarf Fortress, where it's like, oh, it's simulating when your dwarves get in combat, it's like the right fat abdominal fat has been bruised. It's like, cool, great. I don't actually need to know about that. I love that it's doing it in the background. It's fun to like read it in the stories, but you don't actually need to be like, I better make a right abdominal fat protector armor.
You're not the one managing that level of complexity.
Exactly. So in like SimCity, there's like, oh, it's calculating all the like figuring out where all the people are going and whatnot. But you don't really have a way of controlling that granularity. You're dealing with things on a more macro level. I don't want to deal with the 10 different kinds of flour that you can make. I want it to be like, cool, you got like, here's some things you can make a sandwich.
It's just food source 1, food source 2,
yeah,
and maybe the
like,
special food source 3.
And maybe if you like want to engage on a deeper level, if you to like eke out that extra 5 or 10%, you like, you get your macronutrients perfect and it makes you a little bit better. Cool, great. But you don't need to do that immediately to survive at all.
Like, that reminds me
yeah, you're in a kitchen. There's definitely food around here, but like I don't know how to like make this sandwich. It's like, I don't know, just put the things together and eat it.
Well, your sandwich making skill was 0, so there you go.
Yeah.
In Civ 5, like the Civ 5 is another simulation, right? And like the city management is the same way. Like you don't have to open up your city and like control where all of your your population like goes to like control exactly how much production's happening. You can just like let the city run and then it's going to produce normal amounts, or you can go in there and micromanage all that stuff. But it had a very good UI for that, and so like if you want to ignore it, it does its thing naturally, and if you want to go there and like be really particular about it, you can. And I think that's an example of a really great implementation of this. And I don't know how that would, I'm trying to imagine like how that would work in this game. I mean, the only way I really think it works is if like, foods have like there's just like a slider of like not difficulty but complexity, and so like foods are just like they go from like the most complex different sorts of flours and ingredients, and like you turn the scale to the most idiot, like where it's something good for me anyways, and it would be like it is just like this makes food bar go up. And like, and then you don't have to worry about all the like, my salt management and my, what's my cholesterol levels right now? Oh my God, my LDLs. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you could do something where it's like, there's a recipe that's just like food mash. It just like put calories in, squish it all together.
Sorry, what?
Because it's like all the recipes,
like
they have like very specific recipes. Like I ate a wheat-free bread jam sandwich. It's like that is an extremely high level of like the fact that it's not like, oh, like
someone coded that.
Why is there wheat-free bread? And like this specific a cucumber sandwich is different than jam sandwich. Like you could like simplify that down to sandwich, and it gives you 10% less food benefit in exchange for 100% less mental complexity to deal with. And then later, once you're a god tier, you're just like you burned the mouse and you're coding in Emacs, and like just your fingers are flying across the screen or across the keyboard. Then you get into your wheat-free jam sandwiches, and you compare the literal like I gotta get more calcium in my diet from the milk in this fridge.
Colin, Emacs is a roguelite. This is a roguelike podcast, so we can only talk about Vim here.
I don't actually know what Emacs is.
Nobody
Except
does.
that it's programming stuff.
So the game like aesthetically is like very simple, and it's very, systems driven, which is like there's something to be said for that. Like there's not like a bunch of needless fluff. Like everything means something. And like it's very like tangible and like trackable. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about how, oh, you could feed that information to ChatGPT. The way I've thought about it with like these really simple looking but very sophisticated behind the scene games is that like there's this bargain being struck. It's like you're giving up usability and you're giving up pretty graphics to have these cool, complicated systems that can interact with each other and produce like unique and interesting and engaging situations. And that is what has always enchanted me about Dwarf Fortress. And I'm just like spitballing here, but like every other thing that I'd read about Dwarf Fortress would be like, yeah, I was playing in my fortress and I invited like a group of visitors from a neighboring fortress. And during this summit we were having in the mead hall, a goat broke in and started an argument and started a fight, and that caused the relations between the two fortresses to go south, which culminated in a war, which resulted in me having to like break open a lava dam to like kill the invaders. And then that ended with like my dwarves just, of their own accord, erecting a statue to, glorify the person who broke down the dam.
No, they erected it to the goat.
They erected it to the goat. Yeah, like cool shit like that. And so I was hoping that there was similarly cool stories to be told in this game. So I went looking for them. And they're all the ones that I was able to find were like old stories. So maybe the game's way better now. I don't know. But they're all very similar to your story, Colin, where it's like, here is a story about how I got killed by something. And when like you break it down into its simplest parts, these stories aren't that interesting. It's like, I went to X location, X enemy attacked me, and I died in X way. And like, it's a lot of stories of like, of those sorts of situations. And I was reading one thread where it's like, all right, now we're cooking. Now we're in a situation. This guy's talking about how he has this base, and this person has this base set up, and a Jabberwocky monster, which is this horrible like gibbering mouther, like the Thing monster, breaks in, and he has to he escapes, and it's basically he has to work on getting back his fort. And I'm like, oh cool, are there going to be some neat like Home Alone style like sophisticated traps or something where he's going to come up with some really clever cool, because again we got all these like detailed systems that hopefully should be interacting and hopefully should be resulting in like cool stuff. Is he going to have to do something neat like that, MacGyver it, and get this monster out? No. He ends up just like sort of aggroing the monster and guiding it outside. I'm like, all right, cool. He's got a plan. Something's going on. What's the plan? He jumps in his car and drives away, and he just baits the monster away. And then in the story, he's like, and then I came up with this idea, or then I had an idea, and I was like, all right, sweet. He's going to activate the like James Bond, like, the features of his car and turn around and like do something cool, put down an oil slick, light it on fire. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. Again, this is the kind of things that you could have if you've got a GM running a post-apocalyptic game for you. Anyway, nope, that's not what happens. His grand plan is just to do a 180 and drive away. And the monster then stopped chasing him. And it was like, what? Where are the cool stories? What are we doing all this for? What are we hurting our faces against the keyboard for and learning all these systems, all these rules, just so we can get killed in like kind of unique ways? A lot of these stories that I read about cool stuff happening, I felt like could be accomplished with a game of, just an improv game. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting all worked up. Where are my lava dams?
I was thinking that like he was going to turn the car around and run over the monster with his car.
That would have been more interesting.
In a very like horror movie style comedy factor. But yeah, like you would think a game that has like something, I think there's like you have like Skynet, you have the Combine, and you have the Blob all in the same game. Where is like I never encountered any of this. Like I never encountered like any hint that like any of this cool stuff was in here.
Get a human-sized dragon or child-sized dragonfly attack you? I mean,
I did my damnedest, and Colin and Andrew will attest to this, to swing my acoustic guitar at it, but I was just not skilled enough. And you'd think you'd be able to hit a child-sized dragonfly with an acoustic guitar pretty easy, but I guess I didn't have my MP3 player charged up enough to give me enough of a morale boost to swing in its direction to intercept. But yeah, it tore me to pieces.
That was the game where we started it on easy mode, right?
Yeah, that was like the easiest difficulty level, the smallest world. And my tutor was saying, like, if you can get in the evacuee scenario, and we haven't really talked about the scenarios, but there's a whole bunch of them. Evacuee scenario, the easiest one, if you can get from there to the refugee shelter, which is like, I don't know, like 25 to 30 minutes of gameplay, that's like an intermediate level of skill. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound too hard on like the easiest mode. Bam, dead, bam, dead, bam, dead. I'm like, ugh. Like it doesn't feel like it has that hook of like, oh, I died. Oh, I died because of this factor I didn't account for. Haha.
Right.
I'm going to account for it again this time. It just feels like I have no control over.
the Yumi appears on your screen. It's faster than you.
Yeah.
That's it.
I feel like, yeah, Will, you talk about making just like the fun comes from making interesting decisions. And I feel like the decision was don't have that thing be near you.
Roll the dice better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's
Don't have
honestly
that
like
thing
some of the
near you.
gameplay I was watching is like, yep, he has to get on top of this roof, and there's like every single time he gets off of a roof, there's like you roll a dice about whether or not you break your leg when you get down. He's like, you there's no other way to get through this scenario. You just have to get on the roof, and like, all right, are we gonna restart the game now? Let's find out. Oh, drop down. Oh, broke my leg.
There's
and
no
now
ropes. There's no ropes in this rich simulation.
Well, I mean, he just like he had some specific goal, is like on a very insane difficulty or something. But like,
I see.
thousands of hours with this player, and I'm just like, I'm trying to watch the pro, like, to get a sense, and like,
you got to leave it up to just a random dice roll. I hope I don't break my legs.
Right. And 90% of the game was like, well, do I take the dice roll to go on top of the roof this route, or do I run this way and see if I think I get, let's see, if he's going to run at this speed and I'm right here, am I going to calculate it so that he won't grab me? What's the probability for me grabbing me? It's just like, yeah, that is a little bit, I mean, to some extent I get it, because like tactical, like sort of decision making it can be super fun, but
there has to be the decision to make in order for it to be fun decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the decisions were not, usually by the time I was making decisions, it was already too late. Because the decision was like, how hard do I fight before I run away, and I'll die either way.
Should we get to ratings? I feel like how long, how far are we in here?
I think we're definitely in the rating zone now. Maybe I'll go first. I think I probably have the most negative things to say about this, despite like I tried so hard to jump into this and be like, okay, we even have like an extra month because we failed to do our homework last time. I'm gonna like jump in. I'm gonna try all the different launchers and stuff, and it's just like every time I felt like I was hitting a brick wall of enthusiasm. Of like, yeah, the character creation menu's fun, but like, you know, there's like a million other games that have better character creation stuff in it if I just want to play paper doll mode all day. The menu system we've joked about a lot, but like it's not even just like what's displayed in it, it's like how you get to it is like doesn't make any sense to me without having like like a NASA style screen of like monitors, each with like different wiki pages up. Okay, what's the hotkey that I need in order to put a left shoe on versus my right shoe? Just is like bafflingly complex for no reason. The Steam release, I understand the need for the developers to have like an official presence on Steam. I don't have a problem with that, but the price is like way too high for what this game is. Tales of Maj'Al, a stay tuned and a half for sure. Kind of similar design background as Cataclysm, but that game is $5 on Steam, and it like it kind of doesn't compute for me of like, well, why is one of like the other game 4 times more expensive for like a tenth as much fun? I'm particularly biased against zombie survival games. I don't think the genre is very interesting. I think this game suffers from Walking Dead-itis of like, there's no goal, and that's the whole point. And
it's a game about nothing.
What's the deal with Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead? I mean, are we talking about, is it overcast? Why is it so dark outside? Hey, get a lighter, get a flashlight.
But I'll say some good stuff here. Being able to zoom in and out is an underrated aspect for this game. The character creation options are many and are interesting enough to like pick and choose. Like, oh yeah, maybe I am allergic to vegetables and I hate them, and I am only meat eating, and I have cybernetic rollerblades. Okay, sure. I think the background lore of the game is super cool, but like, let me engage with that more. Like, I want to be able to build like more easily build up a compound of NPCs and like have like the humans wage war against like the Combine equivalent of this game. That sounds cool. I want to do something like that. And then oh yeah, like when you equip stuff, your character sprite changes visually. That's like something that we've kind of complained about other games. Probably no easy feat in this game with how much clothing options there are. And
that's where 10,000 developers were working on that.
I mean, yeah, it probably seems like it. And I like the scenario starts in this game. I like the fact that like, oh, you can choose like,
oh yeah, definitely.
I was a helicopter pilot and I ran out of fuel and I had to land on a bridge and I got to go to the airport to get fuel and bring it back for my helicopter. Like, that sounds like an interesting goal to achieve if I just didn't get eaten by a blob 5 minutes into gameplay. So for me, I had this game like rated as high as like 26 out of 33 on my list, and I couldn't do it. Like after that stream yesterday, I was like, no, this has solidified my position as my second lowest game on my list, just ahead of Realm of the Mad God and just behind A Valley Without Wind. This game was like actively physically unpleasant for me to play because like I commend and I applaud the content that people produce out of this. I think that's much more interesting than playing the game. Go and watch those videos. Go and like download 10 hours of Rycon roleplay videos of him doing like a nuclear facility escape sequence. Like, that's cool to listen to when you're on your drive. Like, invest your time in that. Like, for me personally, I don't want to invest any time more into learning the systems of this game at all. So for me, 32 out of 33, that's where it's going to land.
Rock and roll.
I'm getting pointed at here, I guess. I'll jump in. Let's see here. Where do I place it?
33 out of 33.
No. I think I'm gonna give it a better rating. The way I'm kind of ranking this one is looking at like the other games on my list here and like kind of feeling like, you know, which would I really prefer to play here? And it doesn't make it too high up on the list. But like compared to Brotato, Brotato's got a 4.5 here. I gotta say, I think I would rather play this game than Brotato. And I know you're giving me the this is a crazy decision, but there's just so much. I feel like, and I know I talked about this before the podcast, but like it's one of those things where I feel like if I was locked in a room and I had to just play a game forever, I think eventually once you go up that wall of complexity, I think there is some like real fun to be had here. I think that once you get up that wall, this game's probably like a 7 out of 10. But I'm not up that wall. And so in reality, it's probably even lower than what I'm going to give it. I'm giving it this rating with the expectation that if I was to climb some way up the wall, that it gets better. And I'm kind of taking the average of these. I think right now I give the game a 3 out of 10. If I was going to say like, like right now, how do you feel? Oh God, no, I really don't want to even think about learning the menu systems and like all the minutia of the threads and the short threads and the long. No, it's a 3 out of 10. But to kind of split the difference here, I'm going to give it a 5. I think that I'm giving it a 5 out of 10, which makes it my 17 out of 30, however many 32 games we've rated, or 32 for me, anyways. I know I wasn't here for the last time, but
perhaps this is not the space for discussion and debate. But if I'm not mistaken, 5 is the minimum rating.
No, 6 is for recommend.
Oh, 6. Oh, excuse me. Whew, thank goodness.
Yeah, no, I know, I can't recommend this game.
My mistake.
It had to be below that threshold.
Okay,
but like,
okay.
Understood.
Understood. Right on. So a quick addendum. The story that I just told a little while back about driving away and outrunning a Jabberwocky, it did start with a NPC sneaking into this person's base and stealing something, and then the Jabberwocky was sort of let in as a result of that. That's interesting. Like, the game needs sort of like more of that. These complicated, in-depth simulation systems, like interacting and interesting emergent gameplay. Emergent gameplay. Yes. So I think that perhaps, I feel like maybe this game is what has been built so far. These simulation systems could be taken and made into something really amazing, potentially. It is not amazing for me. I feel like most of the sort of like victories and triumphs and achievements in this game, at least at the level that I was playing it, was, did I successfully survive the day? Did I successfully eat food, sleep on a cold bench, get woken up by the NPC person who was in the building, like fighting a zombie? You hear gunshots. Would you like to continue sleeping? Yes. Did you? And these sorts of achievements, the way I see it is hard enough surviving in the dark days that we're currently living in for a lot of America. But at least when you like deal with all the baloney, all the bullshit that you got to deal with in real life, there's at least the possibility that somebody cute, likes you on Tinder, or you meet someone interesting, or you have a cool social interaction. That's not going to happen probably in Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. I think that IRL is enough of a survival simulator for me, at least at the moment. I too looked at my list. I
mean, you love Don't Starve, and like, and that whole survival dynamic. I mean, that's a like, you're in someone's nightmare essentially.
Oh, well, this is an interesting question. I guess I haven't played Don't Starve in a long time, but it's accessible, it's whimsical. I can kind of like make goals for myself, and there is sort of a tech tree of sorts that you get to follow.
I guess they're cute beefalo, right? Okay, never mind. I take it back.
The cutesy like differences? I guess for me, that's an interesting question, and it's possibly possible that Don't Starve might be a stay tuned as well. But it's an interesting point. Don't Starve, I guess I found fun, and unfortunately, Cataclysm I did not find to be fun. So I looked through my list and I was like, hey, what games would I rather play more than this? I'm sorry to say that I think I would like to play Brotato more than Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead, so it goes at the bottom of my list. Again, I salute the proud 1,100 devs. Keep it up, and hopefully this will turn into something glorious and even enjoyable to a pleb such as myself.
All right, and I'll take us home. I right now have it ranked as 17 out of, no, that's Will. I have it 25 out of 33. Yeah, I feel like that's about the right spot. I feel like I'm in very much the same kind of mindset as Will, where I'm ranking it at least a little bit on the like where I imagine climbing to. I had a couple of moments of like satisfaction. I won't necessarily call them fun, but like the thrill of conquering something, of managing to figure out how to get something done did feel like it was an accomplishment. I murdered zombies. I got into the house. I successfully fed myself. I clothed myself. Like, I got a little house thing. I got some food from the ground. Like, it felt much more like a true achievement than almost all of the other like survival crafting games, where it's like, go punch tree, food falls from sky, super easy. Like, when we played what was that stupid game we played recently, Will? With the one with the like mines and the worms that spit acid at us and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, what was that game? It was Icarus. That's right.
Yeah, Icarus. So another survival crafting game where we're like, oh, this is boring. It's too easy. Like we have too much food. Like it's literally overflowing our chests with like meats that we because there's just animals running everywhere, like auto headshots for you. Like surviving in this game felt like an accomplishment. And I wish that it felt like an accomplishment because of the gameplay and not because of like managing to like fight against the game. Like I wanted to be able to fight with the game against the things in it, not against the game and the things in it. So stay tuned for when ChatGPT consumes this game and spits it out as a interactive role play, whatever.
I'm pretty sure that might be the origin story for the Balthazar AI system that exists in Cataclysm. That's probably what's going to cause the Cataclysm. So
also, it has no music.
Yeah, there's no music or sound effects in the base game. If you find one of the myriad of launchers that works, I think the one that I've been recommended to is the Catapult. If you just search CDDA Catapult launcher,
I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to play like this. I want to be able to just load a game up and be able to play it without having to utilize like 5 hours of external resources to be able to play the game.
You've never modded Skyrim, then, or Fallout?
I have, but you can play Skyrim without modding it.
Is it really playing?
It's worse, but
is it worth
do it. Like, I don't have to mod music into Skyrim.
Can you mod in an alert that says there's a dragon nearby? Safe mode is on. Press exclamation mark to turn off.
I don't know. You can transform the dragons into Thomas the Tank Engine.
I wish that that feature had been in the fan-made Aliens franchise roguelike that I played way back. Because I did get killed many times just by I was moving and didn't realize that, oh no, an ASCII art alien had popped out and was eating me. But oh gosh, was that aggravating to have to deal with. Like I know you can turn off the safe mode, but the game is kind of designed with that like in mind, and especially when you're first starting out, it's like you want it on, but like gosh, what just turned combat into such a painful experience.
I can understand when it warns you of serious threats like Canadian geese, but yeah, when you're running into extra dimensional monsters, you're like, yeah, I got it. All right, let's quickly touch on some similar games to this. There's some more, I think, accessible open world rogue style zombie survival games that I don't think I would touch with the 10-foot pole, but maybe more of like an intro to this game that people might find more interesting to start with as a gateway drug. There's Terminus Zombie Survival, which I think might have all of the quality of life improvements that we've been complaining about. And then a game called Project Zomboid. I think those kind of fill in specific zombie-related ones. And then there's our big list of specific sandbox-style make-your-own-fun rogue games, including, but not limited to, Dwarf Fortress's adventure mode specifically. Caves of Cud, I'm going to loop into that category. Ironically, Unreal World, where you are a Bronze Age Scandinavian survivalist, probably more accurate than this game in terms of like having to rebuild or like live without society. And then you have your downtown Portland survival simulator, Neo Scavenger, which follows a similar vein of having to shank junkies for bottles of water to survive. So give those a look, see if those tickle your fancy, and if you're like, you know what, I need more complexity, Cataclysm might be right up your alley.
I'm looking at Project Zomboid right now, and it open world isometric
Yeah, it is this game, but better. I played it and it didn't really capture my attention completely, but
Isometric. Woo.
it's I think much better.
I agree with Will. I played a little bit of Project Zomboid way back when it was like fresh, and even then it felt more like, I'm talking like 10 years ago. More complete, more it felt more like a game.
Well, congrats, comrades. That was 33 games that we have reviewed over the past year, having to escape from this Chernobyl-like episode. You've performed your duties perfectly. I wish you good health and long life. All of you will be awarded a bonus of 800 rubles for your service. Our next episode is our 1-year anniversary episode. Hooray! We did it. We're officially, I guess, a podcast now. And to celebrate, what better thing to do than to argue about stuff that doesn't actually matter in the universe? What is the definition of a roguelike game? We've done this podcast for a year. We've talked about all sorts of games, from whatever this is to Luck Be a Landlord and everything in between. So there's a lot of consternation, and how do we conflate all these different games that may or may not belong in this genre? So tune in for our next episode. We will be the first people. We're going to do it. We're going to be the first ones to actually define what the genre is, and then no one can complain about it ever again. So we're gonna actually solve the problem in our next episode, believe it or not. And if you, dear listener, would like to write into the show and provide your input as to what you think a roguelike game is and where you think the genre is going, you can write into the show at grogpodzone@gmail.com. You can send your abusive messages to us on Mastodon with all the others, grogpod@gamedev.place. And you can check out all of our rankings and data and deliberations of things on the website at grogpod.zone. I think that's gonna wrap our episode here. Assuming, of course, that we're not also a simulation living within some other higher being's computer that is navigating a series of menu systems that is making me say all this. But yeah, tune into our next episode. We're gonna Fight Club it out about what is a roguelike. What is it? I don't know what it is. You know,
what's the deal?
And I guess that'll wrap up this episode. But to play us out, if you happen to find the ambient soundscapes for this game, one of the myriad packages, this is the ambient soundscape of you waking up in a post-apocalyptic nightmare of menu systems that you can't Vim your way out of. We'll see you next time.